Check, check, check. All right, so like I was saying, today is maybe the most crucial class of the semester in terms of learning our pipeline. Today would be part 3 of our pipeline. We've been going through this process now using After Effects as our 3D camera tracker. Then we moved into Cinema 4D in order to convert that into a 3D camera that we can then import into Unreal. Really, the Cinema 4D program is just kind of a middleman, I guess you would say, between the tracked camera and After Effects and Unreal. There are plugins that can go straight from After Effects to Unreal, but I didn't really want to get into the ramifications of those in this class. Plus, it gives us a little nice taste test of what a proper 3D program can do, like Cinema. So we did that last class, Cinema, and today we are going to bring it all together in Unreal with part 3. So, part 1, we track a camera in After Effects, right? We have the plane on the ground that sticks. The plane can ultimately become anything, as we saw last week when we started to add all sorts of fun stuff to Cinema. I thought the last class was really productive, almost surprisingly so. It was kind of fun how we were just adding in assets from the default asset browser in Cinema. So taking this, we brought it into Cinema last week, right? This is my file from last week. And like we had talked about, if you were comfortable in your 3D program, this could be your last stop. You don't even need to go into Unreal if your goal is to render out of, in this case, Cinema 4D. Of course, that involves a lot of rendering time. It involves a lot of knowledge about Cinema 4D that we just don't have a chance to cover this semester, which is why we're moving into Unreal. But this was our middle step. Today, we are ultimately bringing it into Unreal. This isn't going to look as pretty right now because things just don't come straight over, but it's the same thing, now fully brought into Unreal. Minus the video, I didn't set up the video yet. That's the process that we're going to go through today. So we're almost there. The process that we're going to learn in Unreal today is a pretty tedious process, much more so than the After Effects or Cinema process. So, pay attention, and this is being recorded, so you can refer back to it. But after today, our pipeline will pretty much be done. I think the only thing outstanding that we probably won't get to today is how to do shadows. We'll see how much time we have, but otherwise we'll kick that to next class. Any questions before we get started? All right. Those of you that just came in, go ahead and open up After Effects and Cinema and an Unreal project. So there's some settings that I want to set up in Unreal first before I get into things just because it's going to take a little bit for the shaders to recompile. So we have to set up two things, actually three things, but we did one of them last week. Remember last week we had to turn on the plugin for Datasmith. The Datasmith C4D importer. We turned that on. We got to turn that one on. And so go ahead and turn that on if it's not on already. It's probably not. So if you don't know how to get this, settings in Unreal, plugins. If you want to create a new project, that's fine. If you want to use an existing project, that's also fine. I'll wait a second for y'all to load into Unreal. So after you're in here, settings, plugins, and there's a couple things that we're going to turn on. One is called Datasmith, the Datasmith C4D importer. That's going to allow us to import cinema files into Unreal. I think there's a couple of you that are more familiar with Cinema 4D for your own work. This is a pretty cool plugin, even outside of this class, because it allows you to import Cinema 4D scenes directly into Unreal. So go ahead and enable this one. It's probably going to ask you to restart. Do not restart yet. The next one we want to turn on is called Composure. Enable that one. It's also going to tell you to restart. Don't restart yet. So Datasmith, Composure. And then you can go ahead and close that plugins menu down. And I want you to go to Settings, Project Settings. And in the search, just type alpha in. And you want to change this box right here, enable alpha channel support in post-processing. Change this from none or disabled or allow through tone mapper, change it to linear color space only. This will tell you to restart. Go ahead and just click restart. I already set these up, so I don't have to restart. So when it prompts you to restart, go ahead and restart. It may take a little while for it to process. Just let that do its thing in the background. And we will come back to it once it's loaded up. So, three things that we did here. We turned on the Datasmith plugin, like I said, that allows us to import C4D files directly into Unreal. We turned on Composure. Composure is the compositing framework built into Unreal that we're going to use today. It allows us to separate out foregrounds and backgrounds and media plates from each other. And then the last thing we did with the alpha is what allows us to have CG assets with transparency in them. It allows us to lay over composited elements in Unreal. All right, so we will come back to that. I'm going to talk a little bit first now. So we've talked over the last couple weeks, a number of different ways to get cameras and video into Unreal. I think it was like the second class or maybe even the first class where we imported video into Unreal and we stuck it to a plane. That's a pretty easy way to get video into Unreal. Stick it on a plane, place it in the world. There are more advanced ways. One that we haven't covered is using something called an image plate in Unreal. It's not something that I'm really going to go over in class. And then the last way there, media setup as a media plate in Composure. That's the most advanced way of doing cameras and video footage in Unreal for compositing, and that's what we're going to do today. So the simple way that we've done, create a media plate, place it as a material in our world. We did that very early on. It's easy. Downside of that is you can have camera alignment issues, and also there's no ability to do camera tracking with that, which is what we've been building up to here. That's kind of just, drive your camera around and point it at the flat surface that has video playing on it. It works in a lot of ways, but it does have limitations. The next way, the medium way in between here, is to use this plugin called the image plate plugin. What that does is it sticks a plane to the frustum of the camera so that wherever the camera points, the plane is always perpendicular to the camera. Sort of like this. Your plane of video is always attached to the camera. This is not something that we're really going to use in class. Perhaps there's a project that it makes sense to use this, but we're going to use the much more advanced way with Composure. So setting up an image plate, not as simple as just dropping a material on a plane, but still kind of easy. There are no camera alignment issues because the plane is stuck to the camera. The plane tracks with the camera. The downside of this is that you may have noticed when you brought video or even still pictures into Unreal, you may notice that they don't look like maybe they did in Photoshop. They look kind of washed out. They don't look great. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? No, not so much. They look kind of washed out. The reason for that is because they're being processed by Unreal's color grading, called a tone mapper. Image plate does not allow us to bypass the tone mapper, and also the image plate does not allow us to have render layers, so we can't separate out the foreground elements from the background elements for easy compositing of our scene. The most advanced way is what we're going to do today, using Composure. This is the most difficult of the pipelines. There are no alignment issues. We can do camera tracking. We could do real-time compositing if we had a capture card like we do on that roller cart computer behind you. We can do layer-based compositing with Composure. We can do live chroma keying if necessary. We can use this with pre-recorded footage or live video feeds. We have complete control over Unreal's tone mapper so that your video footage looks exactly like it did in After Effects, exactly like it did when you shot it on camera. We can also have shadows with Composure. We can have our 3D objects cast shadows onto the video background. And we can export render layers into a traditional VFX pipeline. We can render out our separate foreground objects with an alpha channel in order to lay them back over top of our video in post-production. this is the process that we will be using today. So there's a really great documentation on Composer that's on the Unreal Engine website. Just type Composer Quick Start and they'll walk you through the process. And in this class we're using Unreal Engine 4 still, which is fine. The documentation's actually with Unreal Engine 4, so that will make sense to you. There's also a sample project for Composer. I will warn you that this sample project is pretty confusing, but also a great example of ultimately what we can do here. So this video here is complete video footage except for the robot avatar. Everything else is a real-world video that was shot in Epic's campus where they have their studio in Raleigh, North Carolina. You'll see here just the robot walking on black, and then the video footage dropped in to it. This is what Composer allows us to do in the Unreal Engine. There's also another really great course called Real-Time Compositing Basics. It's just a good other reference if you want something more outside of this class for Composer. So when it comes to composites, not even just in this class, but composites in general, you have multiple pieces, layers of content. With Unreal, for the most part, our content is going to be a CG background, perhaps, a video plate, and some sort of CG foreground. Sorry, I got a cough for a second. A tickle in my throat. I was sick last week, but now I'm better, but I still got a tickle. Apologies. So in this case of this graphic here, you see the cone and the cylinder. They are foreground elements. The green screen video is the video plate, and then the clouds in the Unreal background is the background plate. When those things come together, we get the final composite here. This is what Composer allows us to do, is this layer-based compositing method. Which seems pretty obvious, I think, to students that are used to Photoshop and After Effects compositing. Composer also allows us to do real-time green screen keying if we wanted to as well, dropping out the background of recorded video or live video. Live video, you'd have to have a capture card. We do have a capture card on the PC, on the roller cart on the other side of the room there, which we could also use. All right, for those of you that just came in, I need you to open up Unreal. Does everybody else still have the files that we've been using the last couple weeks? It's called the AE tracking.zip files. You know, it has this stuff in it. Once we get everybody set up with an Unreal, we'll start doing the process. If y'all have your Cinema 4D files from last week, you could open those back up. I don't know if we all do still. That would be awesome if we still do. All right, so in Unreal, to reiterate again, there's 3 things that we need to set up. So we need to go to Settings, Plugins. And we type in Datasmith. We are enabling the C4D Datasmith importer. When it says restart, don't click restart yet because there's other stuff that we need to enable. We also need to enable a composure. And don't restart yet. We can close this down. And then we need to go to Settings, Project Settings. And in the search, type alpha. And you want to change this one to linear color space only. Then you can restart when it prompts you. So you only need to do this once for a project. Once you do it, the project, you won't have to do it again. If you create a new project, you will have to turn this stuff back on again. Okay. By default, this sort of stuff is not on in Unreal. Okay. So our very first step here, I also have a lot of slides that are in the class syllabus that detail this process. Everything that we do here is going to be in the slides, but we're just going to do it live. So the first thing I want you to do, we've gone through the process, we tracked our camera in After Effects, we brought it over into Cinema. We don't really need to set up a world here or anything. That was kind of just fun for last week. So if you have any extra stuff there, you can go ahead and delete it. We just want to keep the background and the camera and the solid. We don't even really need the solid. It's just nice for reference. And just make sure that it all still tracks. We can save it as something else if you want to keep all your changes before you deleted them. So to save this for Unreal, we want to go to File, Save Project for Cineware. It should still work if you just do Save Project, but we want to save project for Cineware. And call it something and save it somewhere. And honestly, that's really all we need to do. We don't really even need to go through setting up the background and all that stuff. All we need to do is bring this from After Effects into Cinema, drop the camera to the floor, and then save it for Cineware. And then we go straight back into Unreal. So once you get comfortable with that process, you don't even really need to set up the background. The background is kind of just to check that everything is good in Cinema. Because we're going to reset the background up in Unreal in a different way.
Before saving it in Cineware, does it matter if the background is not showing up because it's not showing up?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
The background's not going to get exported anyways. Really, the only thing that's important that's coming out of Cinema is the camera itself and all of its keyframes. Okay, let's go over to Unreal. If I have a better map here. Oh, there's my map. Let me get rid of this other stuff. I'm just getting rid of some of this other stuff that I had in a map from before, just to clean it up a little bit. All right, I'll save that. Save current. Good. Okay, so whatever your map is, whether it's the table and chairs or nothing, it really doesn't matter because we're creating a new world around our scene, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to import that Cinema 4D file. What happened to my... Oh, there it is. So what I want you to do is up top, you should have a button that looks like this. It says Datasmith, assuming that you turned the plugin on. If you don't see it, you may have to click the little arrows or just drag the window to the right a little bit. Click Datasmith. It's going to ask you, where's the C4D file you want to import? Go ahead and find it. Click Open. Then Unreal will ask you where you want to save it to in Unreal. Just click OK on Content. That's fine. And then you're going to get a prompt that's asking you what you want to import. For those of you more familiar with Cinema, some of these other things might be useful. Importing materials, lights, that sort of stuff, geometry perhaps. For our cases, we're just importing the camera, its animation, and that flat plane. So I'm just going to check these three things. And go ahead and click Import. And it may take a second for it to import. Just let it do its thing. Once that imports, you may or may not see something obvious. What should happen down bottom is that you see some stuff got imported. You may see something change in your main window. And over in the content browser or in the world outliner, you should see the name of the file that you imported and some of the names of the other things that were in Cinema, like the After Effects file, the camera, the solid, that sort of stuff.
Do you need images?
What's that?
I only have animation.
You just didn't import your plane. That should be okay. Did you have it checked?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear it.
Yeah, it's probably just you didn't have your plane. So probably what most people have is similar to what I have. There's like a big gray plane somewhere in the middle of their world. What I want you to do now is, in that folder that opened up, it should have opened up like this for you. If it didn't, you can browse to your Datasmith file. I called mine Unreal Test 01.c4d. And I want to go into the animations folder, and you will see a level sequence file in there that got created automatically for our camera animation. Go ahead and double click that. And sequencer should pop up, which we've used before. And you should be able to scrub your timeline and see the keyframes. Remember though, cameras in Unreal, you won't see them until you're clicked on the little camera icon. That locks the camera to the selected viewport. When you do that, you should be able to scrub your scene and see the same camera movement that we had in C4D and After Effects. Although I am very far away from the table and chairs right now. We will fix that next. If your video footage was not 16:9, you may have, just different aspect ratio. Yeah. Yours as well. Show me the symbol for you. What happened to your timeline? Go to window. You saved it as you went to File, Save your cinema. Sometimes it takes a while to import. If it has been quite a bit of time, then maybe it crashed or something. But Sometimes this does take a little bit of time to do. But you're going to have to force quit Unreal.
Are we going to use geometry in this case or
What's that?
the geometry folder when come in?
That's fine. If you have any geometry, we're going to place Unreal assets as our geometry. Let me show a couple more things and then we'll try to iron out some of these problems that people are having. So as you can see right now, this is pretty much my camera movement that was originally in the video footage. Right, it's pretty much the same. Actually, it's not pretty much, it's exactly the same. But if this is the little world that I'm building, not that I've really started doing that, but let's just say I'm using the table and chairs as a starting point, I am really far away, right? And I'm also on the wrong side of them. So this is something that you can do, is you can scale down your Datasmith file, which will basically scale down everything with your camera track. So let me show you how to do that. So in World Outliner in Unreal, if you select this, you can then go into the details for that and start scaling it down. You want to scale it down uniformly, so make sure the lock is clicked. So if I scale this down to like 0.1 instead of 1, you can see already I'm getting a lot closer to the table and chairs. Still not quite happy with this, so maybe I will do, I don't know, 0.05. Same movement, it's just been scaled down. Now if I wanted to rotate it so I'm facing the table and chairs, I can rotate it by rotating the z-axis. This might be different if you have a vertical camera. The scaling is the same though. Now I'm getting there. See? And also, if I wanted to just move the whole thing so I was closer to the table and chairs, I could change the location of that Datasmith file. So now I have my camera movement arranged a little bit better on the table and chairs. I haven't modified any of the keyframes from the camera tracking, so all of that is still precisely right. All I did was change the scale of the parented camera in Unreal. So here's a cool possibility too. Say you didn't even want to have video footage, but you wanted to have like handheld camera. You could film the real world, extract that camera movement, and bring that into Unreal to control a completely CG camera that is shooting just Unreal assets. No video footage at all. I doubt most of you will want to do that, but imagine trying to recreate this camera movement with keyframes in Unreal. It would take you some time to get it so accurately shaky cam.
I might have missed this. How do I activate the camera movement? It's,
Oh, yeah, you got that one.
yeah.
Just click on the little camera icon for it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That'd be useful if you We still have open questions around that I can help with before we move on to the next step?
Mine is still not working.
Still not working. Okay. Yeah, I would say try a different Cinema 4D file. That doesn't work. You tried a different one.
Yeah.
Still
Whenever
freezing.
I open the file, it's just
Strange. Maybe do a new camera track from the whole from the beginning. I had one student that had this problem, and we couldn't figure out why. It was just they started everything over from the beginning again, and then it was fine. But it was weird. I could open their file on my computer, and it would come into Unreal fine, but for whatever reason they couldn't do it. Yeah. Go to File. Save project for Cinema. Yep. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to keep going through the pipeline, and any problems we can try to iron out with the rest of class today. Just since it's such a big pipeline, I don't want to leave these huge gaps in the recording. Okay, so we've imported our tracked camera movement into Unreal. Awesome. Now what we need to do is we need to set up composure in Unreal. This is a lot of step process here. So I'm going to go ahead and save. Just going to call this composure 01. Just go ahead and save, overwrite whatever you had. Did the camera turn red? If this camera ever turns red, or other things in here ever turn red, it just lost its association, which happens sometimes when you save. It's really annoying. To fix it, it's pretty simple. Just click on the little wrench icon and go to Advanced and go to Fix Actor References, and that should fix it. And then you just need to click on the camera again to view it.
And where are we saving?
To fix the red camera,
No, just
just to save.
I thought we were saving it.
Oh yeah, just go ahead and. You can save it wherever, it doesn't matter. Or just click save instead of save as. Did your camera?
Yeah.
There you go. All right, so we've brought an tracked camera into Unreal, but we haven't done any compositing. This is where things get pretty intense. So I'm going to go through this process. Try as best you can to follow along. I think it's something that you're going to definitely have to refer back to this lecture and the documentation, though, to really memorize it. because it is such a process. I'll try to take it slow though, okay? So first thing we want to do is we need to turn on the composure window. There's a whole nother window here that we need to turn on. Actually, we need to turn on two windows. So go up to Window and Composure Compositing. And go ahead and grab onto the tab here and just snap this window. Come on, snap this window into, come on. What do you want to snap at? Snap. I think it's freaking out because my resolution's so tiny here. Where'd you go? Come on. Well, I'm trying to snap it so we can stay organized here, but it's not working for me. Is anybody else able to snap it? Is it just me? You snapped it? I just don't know how to do a basic computer thing. It won't let me. It keeps freaking out. Maybe because I'm recording? So we have the Composure Compositing window and then the Layers window. Really starts to take up a lot of room. It's where an extra monitor is kind of nice. You can put different windows on different monitors. So layers in Unreal are something that we haven't used before. They're actually nice even outside of anything we do in this class. Basically like groups or folders. You can assign assets to a layer and you can turn them all off or on by turning off the entire layer for organizational purposes, perhaps for game-related purposes. We're using it with the Composure pipeline. That's how it works with Composure. Alrighty. So first thing that we're going to do, Composure Compositing. We're going to right click in this window and go to Create New Comp. Create New Comp. Go ahead and click it. It's going to ask you create an empty comp shot. Yes. You can call it whatever you want. I usually call mine just comp. You notice that you can click on these things. When you click on it, it shows a little window of what's in there. We don't have anything set up right now, so it's empty. Next thing I want to do, I'm going to right click on the top level comp and go to Add Layer Element. So layer elements are the layers. Remember, we had this chart here. We had the background, the green screen, which was the video footage, and then we had these two computer graphic shapes as the foreground. We need to pick a media plate, and we're going to do CG layer. Right now, let's just do media plate. And then you're going to get a little, oops, don't ask me. We're going to get a little fly down menu here so you can expand that. And I'm going to double click on my media plate, and instead of having it called media underscore plate 1, I'm just going to call it media. It's very important. What you call the things here is what you need to call them somewhere else. So don't use absurd names for this stuff. If you click on the media track now, the media element now, it will just be black because we haven't assigned it any media. So do you all still have the PNG sequence of this? Oops. If you do, that makes our life easier right now. You know, thing that we were using in After Effects, this footage. So we're going to set this up as media in Unreal.
What if I'm not using that footage?
What's that?
What if I'm using?
Oh, you have your own footage?
Yeah.
Then you use your own footage.
Okay, but can it export as MOV or MP4 instead of PNG?
No, you need to use PNG or EXR. It needs to be an image sequence. Otherwise, it won't stay synced up when you render it out. So whatever your video footage is, the video footage that you did the camera track with, you don't want to use mine if you did the camera track with something else, right? So whatever you used when we were in cinema and when we were in After Effects and you did your track, that's the video footage that you want to use. And if it's not already, that needs to be rendered out as an image sequence. Either a PNG, I suppose a JPEG sequence would work. EXR sequences are the best, but we haven't really talked about that. So we need to create some new media. So in my content browser, we've done this before where we've added video to Unreal. In my content browser, I'm going to go to Add Import. I'm going to go to Media. And I want to go to Image Media Source. Media source for image sequences. You double click on it. Remember, it asks you the path to the video footage. Click on the little dots and browse to wherever that video footage is. Remember, you only need to click on the first one in the image sequence. Assuming they're sequentially named, the program will understand. If you know the frame rate, set the frame rate. You can go ahead and click Save in the top left after you're done with that. And close that window down. So that's the source of the media. Now we need to create a media player and a media texture, which we've also done before, just not with Composure. So the green Add Import button again, Media, Media Player. There's a little checkbox here. Go ahead and check that. And click OK. If you click on the media player, the one with the TV, if you double click on it, you should see the file that you just made, the image media source that you just made. It might be named something else. But if you double click it, your footage should play. combining a lot of stuff together today. Did video textures early on, did camera tracking. Now we're bringing it all together. If that works, you can close that window down. Go ahead and smash the save all button right here. Just be safe. Okay, so we set up a video now, but now we need to assign it to our media element in our composure window. So go ahead and click on the media element in the composure window. And then down in the details panel here, you want to open up input. And in the red box it says none for media source. If I expand this window, it says media source. Plug in probably the only one that you have open, your media texture into that, or your media player, media texture, my bad. And if you open up the one with the TV again and you play it again and you drag it out of the way, you should now see it plays in that little window as well. That's cool, that means it works. We don't want to have to open up this window to do that though. So we're going to have to set it up in Sequencer. So now I want you to go to your Sequencer, where we have our tracked 3D camera. Go ahead and drag your timeline to 0 frames. I want you to click the green button in Sequencer, track. And then right up from there, there's media track. It's going to pop a little layer called media in. Click the plus next to media. And add that media. By default, it's 30 frames, so you're going to have to drag it to the length of your timeline. However long it is. And you may still notice that nothing pops up. We need to right click on it, go to properties, where the red box media texture is. You just need to assign it the media texture there as well. It's a really convoluted process. Then that's all set up and good to go. Now you're not going to see it yet because you're only going to see it when you click on the media in the compositing window, in the composure window. If you scrub your timeline when you have that selected, then you should see it play down below. Now this is a little bit of a weird disconnect here. We're used to looking at the big Unreal window and having that be, you know, our world and everything that we need to see. When using composure compositing, it's very important that we click on these individual layers in the composure compositing window to see what we're doing. Right now I'm clicked on media, so it's showing me the media. If I click on comp up here, it's going to give me an error because we haven't set it up yet. Eventually, when I click on comp, it's going to show me the background, the foreground, and the media all combined together, but we haven't gotten there yet. We're getting there though. little pro tip here too. If you click on one of these layers for these elements, there's a full screen button here on the top right. There's also a little push pin button. If you click the push pin, then it will stay there and you don't need to actually click on it anymore, which is good because it's annoying when they disappear sometimes. All right, are we ready to put some tables and chairs on this dirt? Let's do it. Okay, so let's set up another CG element. We right click on the top level comp, again, just like we did to create the media. Add layer element. You can have any number of layer elements that you want. This time we want to do a CG layer. I'm just going to call this FG for foreground. Remember, the name is important. Well, what you name it is important. You don't have to use my names, but we're going to have to use these names again to make this all work. So check it out. Now I click on the foreground and it shows me the Unreal world. I'm going to click the push pin on that too so I can see everything together. Now if I scrub my timeline,
My foreground is so far, like the location is wrong.
interesting. Did you originally move it?
No,
Huh?
do I have to match the, whatever we said at first?
You don't have to match anything. I mean, it's wherever the camera position is kind of arbitrary unless you want to position it within an existing world. So, in our case, if you want to move it, you can click on what is it, cinema C4D file, get that, and then you can scale it down and you can move it with those two settings over there. Or actually, right. Can you like scrub this one?
I'll try to
on the red box there where it says no, sign that. No. Now, if you scrub it, like have all those steps. You gotta set it up still, you gotta right click on it. Properties. Red box. Yeah, click run. Sign that. Just drag it back to the beginning of your timeline, 'cause it's a couple things here. Yeah, and drag it longer. Show how long it is. Good. And if you click on your media in the composure window, nothing happens. Okay. Click on input here. Input again. Okay. Yeah, sign it there, so there's so many places to sign. Alright, now scrub it. So it's going to be weirdly shaped because it thinks it's horizontal video, which is okay. You can fix that. Oh, not comp shot, so we done. You're gonna right click on the top like that. Add layer element. CG layer. Good. It's good for right now. All right. So now in my layers, wow, this is really blown out. In my layers, I want to select, I'm just going to select the table, the chairs, the statue, basically everything that you want to be in the foreground. And I'm going to right click in the layers with them selected, and I'm going to say add selected actors to new layer. You can also create empty layers and then drag things in. There's a lot of different ways to do this. But I'm creating a layer from selected actors. So now I have a layer of tables and chairs that I can turn on and off. Now I need to click on my foreground compositing element. And in the details here, I need to scroll down to the input section and go to capture actors, click plus, click the drop down, and here it's going to say actor set. This is where you assign the layer that you want this compositing element to capture. So you can choose to include or exclude. We want to include it. So I'm going to say table and chairs, or whatever yours is. You can see when I did that, the floor disappeared, which is good. I don't want the floor. Also, yours is you probably have like the sky in the background and stuff too. We don't really want that for our compositing, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those things in my level. So I'm going to get rid of the atmospheric fog, which comes by default in this table and chairs sample. And yeah, now it's black in the background, which is what I want.
How do you add the table and chairs layer again?
So I selected them in the world or in the outliner. And then I right-clicked in the layers panel and I said add selected actors to new layer. You could create as many layers as you want. In this case, we only really need one set. All right. So one thing that you might notice when I'm dragging here is it doesn't quite seem like they're synced up. Anybody have any idea why that is? Well, it could be for a lot of reasons. But one very obvious one here is if I looked at my track solid, the thing that actually came over from After Effects and C4D, it's sitting on, whoops, it's sitting on the grid, which it should be, right? It's supposed to be at 0. If I look at the details, it's at 0, 0, 0, 0, which is what I want. But check it out. The floor and my tables and chairs are actually sitting a lot higher up in space. So I'm going to delete this floor. I'm going to delete both of these floors. And I'm going to move the table and chairs down to 0. Otherwise, they're going to look like they're floating. I don't want them to float. The bottom of the table and the chairs, the pivots on the ground, so you can actually just select them and hit 0 for Z. The statue obviously is not, so you kind of need to eyeball that up. Okay. We're going to have one more thing that will allow us to actually see it laid over top, and then we're going to take a break and start problem solving any other problems. So now we have these things separate. I have my 3D graphics for my foreground separated from the background. I have my media, but I don't have them combined right now. So this is the crucial step that combines them. If you click on Comp up top and you go into your details, there's a couple things that we need to do. One, we need to assign the target camera. So click None. There's probably only one camera here. Go ahead and select that camera. Next thing we need to do is click on the drop down for Transform Compositing Passes. There's 0 array elements here. We need to click the plus to add an element. We need to click on the drop down here for Transform Pass. And then you will see a green material slot. This is how things get composited together with the material in Unreal. A material that says, put the foreground on top of the media plate, put both of those on top of the background, composite them together. So in our case, we have the foreground element and we have a media plate. We are putting the foreground element on top of the media plate. If we had anything in the background, we would put both of those things on top of the background one. We don't have a background one right now. We're keeping things more simple. What we're going to do is we're going to use an over node in the material. Whoops. We're going to use, where'd it go? We're going to use the over node in the material to put those things on top of them. What is the foreground element is over the media plate. Lay it over top of. Okay? And we're going to set up what looks like this. Pretty straightforward in this case. So going back to Unreal, in that green material slot, click on the drop down, and then at the top it says create new asset. Material. Material, not material instance. Material. Go ahead and call it, I'm going to call it m_compositing, just to say organize, because this is my compositing material. The name is arbitrary. Save it where you want to save it at. And then go ahead and double click it in the same details. That's going to open up the material editor, which we've briefly seen before in Unreal. Couple things we need to do here. Oops. So clicking on the big node here, we need to go over to the left side, and for material domain, we need to change it from surface to post-process. This is changing this material from a surface material, which is kind of like a coat of paint, to a post-process material, which happens at the end of Unreal's rendering chain. This is very important. So post-process. You notice that it eliminates a lot of the options here. We only have emissive color. Now I want you to right-click and type in 2D texture. And we want these 2D sample parameter, the texture sample parameter 2Ds is what we want. So we want two of these. I'm going to copy and paste them. Command C, Command V. And I also want to right click and get an over node. Just right click, type over. And I want you to hook this up like this. Very important that we're doing the RGBAs and not the RGB. So we have two parameters representing two compositing elements that are going to be combined together with the over node and then sent out to Unreal. This is where those names become important. Right now they're just both named param. I'm going to click on the top one over on the left side and change this to foreground, whatever you called it for your foreground stuff. And then I'm going to make the bottom one, I named my media just media. If you don't make these names the same as what you have in your composure window, then they're not going to work. These names match these names. Go ahead and click Save. And then we can go back to the main window. All right. Why don't we pause right there? We'll take a break, come back at 2, and we will continue. Yeah, I did.